Yesterday, I had lechon, brownie bites, crackers, and I even had a beer. And the problem was that I actually hadn't eaten enough. So if that sentence makes absolutely no sense to you, this episode is going to flip the script on the way that you think about your diet and how you're actually fueling yourself. Let's face it, lots of men who train and train hard are actually underfueling themselves because of the diet culture. And in this case, less is certainly not more. Have you ever thought to yourself, why is your training going nowhere? The question then for today is, do I have to live in a permanent cut to stay healthy? The short answer, no. So I'm going to show you exactly what to do instead. Why every man, or at least every man who is training, I believe, is cutting. And I don't mean the guy who gets to the gym once or twice a month. I mean the guy who's serious about their training, is consistent, is maybe playing a sport, something like CrossFit, high rocks, football, or they're just obsessed with the gym. And I can guarantee, because they've lived in the world of fitness, in the world of dieting, and have potentially come from a place where they were once overweight, now that they're fueling themselves and it's sabotaging their progress. Because that's what we're fed with. Because there's so many people that nowadays the general population is overweight, especially in the UK, then we are constantly being fed through the media. We need to eat less. We need to have smaller portions. We need to eat under 2,000 calories as fully grown men who are training hard. And even though if we don't believe it, subconsciously that message is being drilled into us. The Instagram socials of the fitness influencers who are shredded to the nines. And for not 1 second do we think that that photo is edited. For not 1 second do we think that they have been in a 3-day fast preparing for this one photo. We just think that's the norm. We think that's the standard of fitness. And it's damaging our health. It's damaging our perception of strength. Trust me, I've been there and it's not a good place to be in. And I suppose this has actually come from the early 2000s, the British supermodel sort of diet. And why I say this is because I feel a lot more of the feminine beliefs around how the way we look, the way we should present ourselves, have almost bled into the male culture. And it wouldn't surprise me now. In fact, I think studies even show that body dysmorphia amongst men and our consciousness of how we look is almost that of equal as women. If not, we've overtaken them. And this has led to severe mental health struggles. The only difference is men typically don't tend to show or share these struggles because of their attachment to the feminine world. The trap really is training harder and eating less. Because what we end up doing is relating surviving a session to performing well. And I know this because I did it for so long. As long as I could get through the session without fainting, without collapsing, feeling like I'd have a pretty decent workout, over an amount of time, this is going to become the norm. And actually, you start to trick yourself that you're feeling good when really you could be capable of so much more if you just fed yourself correctly. So, alluding to the first episode of this podcast, and I did mention that I'd had eating struggles. And it wasn't the typical eating struggles where I would eat too much. It was the complete opposite. Because I was fed that eating less, portion control, keeping calories to a minimum was the way forward for health and fitness. But that was a message to the general population. I am not the general population. I train hard. I have a way over or way above average muscle mass. I am an active person. I need probably double the amount of the average person when it comes to food. And this is only a recent transformation in my own training. As long as I have been into fitness and a coach, I did struggle with this. And I would only say in the past 24 months, and I owe a lot to CrossFit and that competitive sport environment, I've started to really change how I eat, how I see food, and it's transformed my performance. Not just in the gym, but everywhere else. And we'll get into that. So what does underfueling actually cost you? Well, if you think about it this way, let's say you're trying to race a car around a track. And you're racing with a third of a tank of fuel. But the number of laps actually needs a full tank of fuel. So what happens when you get there? Well, one of two things is going to happen. One of three things. You're going to have to drive the car maybe at 50 to 60% capacity, so you don't have to refuel and you can get through the full 60 laps. You're going to get to the 20th lap and then just completely fall off the wagon. You know, the car's going to break down, you're going to be empty, it's going to come to a stop. The third option is you refuel during the race, but that's going to cost you time, and it's not like it's going to allow you to continue at the same capacity. You're going to have to get back into the race and make up for lost time. And it's exactly the same with the body. If you're not fueling yourself enough for your 1 hour high rocks workout, for your 1 or 2 CrossFit WODs, even for your heavy lifts, that session is going to be sabotaged. That session is not going to live up to the expectations that you think it should. You're in essence leaving 50%, 60% of your performance on the table just because you haven't eaten enough or fueled yourself correctly. And what happens after the session? How does your body recover? What resources does it use? Because if you're not feeding it the nutrients it needs, how is it going to recover properly? How are your muscles going to add muscle fibers to grow? It simply can't. It's like asking a builder to build a house or an extension to your house and not giving him the bricks to do it. We can't just muster this up from thin air. And this is a big one for men. Your testosterone is going to be shot if you're not feeding yourself enough. And I will let you know, during my worst times in terms of underfueling, I had no libido at all. I could go days and days and days without masturbation. It's lucky I didn't have a girlfriend at the time because she would be very disappointed. And as a man, thinking that your goods are not up to scratch or not working properly is very, very stressful. It is very, very demoralizing. It makes you feel like you have something wrong with you. And in essence, you do, because your testosterone's way below the level it should be. And I can't tell you for sure it was, because I never had things tested. But it seemed to be, as I ate more and started to focus more on getting fuel into the body, hand in hand, my libido came back like I was a teenage boy. And to this day, well, you can speak to my girl Sarah and she knows that the sex drive is definitely not an issue. And it's great to feel like that. Even more so, your mood. My mood swings are very, very small, if ever present. Sleep is much better as well. I feel rested and recovered most of the time. And what I see when people are underfueling is fatigue. It's low mood. It's isolation in a sense. I don't want that to happen to you. You're putting so much effort into your training. The easy part should actually come from the eating, but because of the psychology that you've been brought up in or learned all this in, it's making it damn difficult to make the switch. You're not lazy, you're just empty. So I am still on this journey of thinking about food as fuel and eating enough. Just to give you an example from yesterday, it felt like I'd eaten a lot of food throughout the day. It felt like I'd eaten enough. I'd even had a 500ml bottle of strong beer just because, I like a beer. And calculating everything still showed me that I was 500 calories below where I'm targeting. And my target is maybe even below where I should be, but I just know I need to build up to where I want to get to. And what does that say? To me, that says it's not enough just to wing it. You have to be a little bit more diligent. You have to start being aware of your consumption. Just like if you were trying to diet and cut and lose fat, you should be doing the same when you're trying to gain muscle, recover, eat enough to perform. I really do believe that the key to diet is awareness, and tracking is such a powerful tool. It doesn't have to be for an eternity, but it can certainly help you as you're making a switch to your diet approaches. Think about food as this way. You probably take supplements, maybe a pre-workout, maybe your vitamins, maybe your protein after you train. Why do we not think about food as the same way? Because my thought process for a lot of the time is that food should be used as a reward. I shouldn't really eat a good meal until after I train. I almost demonize having certain foods. I almost say it's a failure if I give in to having a meal before I train. This is how I used to think. You need to flip that thinking, because food is fuel, and how do you expect to put in your best performance when you're running on empty? Carbs. These are key to performance. Now, I'm not talking about shitloads of sweets, pastries, ice cream, although they can certainly have a place in your diet, just in moderation. But I'm talking about the good, complex, fueling carbs. Rice, sourdough bread, fruits, pasta. These things should be consumed around your training window, particularly beforehand. They are what are going to burn in the engine, giving you the power you need to succeed and get a good training session in. Tell me, when did you ever win a race, a competition, play your best game without eating before, doing it fasted? It's never the case. Fasted training has its place, but it's certainly not on the competition floor. So the way to look at the diet, and it goes the same whether you're trying to lose weight or trying to gain muscle, trying to perform. Protein for me is always going to be the key element. Without enough protein, you'll struggle to recover. And this becomes even more important as you get older, because the body is a little bit more weathered. It's a little bit more strained, and recovery becomes a vital tool if you want to continue to perform at the highest level. So the best way to do this is work out your weight in pounds, and as a minimum, I want you to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. I think a better target would actually to be 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. And if you fall just short of that, then you're for sure hitting your protein target. Now, on training days, I believe you should be consuming carbs in the bucket load. And what I mean by that is, again, using your body weight, you probably want to look at 2 times to 2.5 times your body weight in grams of carbs compared to pounds of body weight. So if you're 150 pounds, aim for a minimum of 300 grams of carbs on your training day. Again, the majority coming from good sources, good fuels. A little bit outside of training is your complex carbs, your slow release energies, oats, rice, pasta. Closer to training or even during training, this is where you can consume your fruits, your sweets, your isotonic drinks with sugars in. That is where they are going to be best used. So going back to yesterday's meals, and clearly I hadn't eaten enough to my target, what I've done today is I've mapped out what I'm going to eat. And the way I've done that is I've used a tool called Claude AI, and you can use any other AI and it can help you. There are also diet tracking apps, but for me this is the best option because I use it for my work anyway. And I've got a plan now to eat 3,400 calories with some simple additions. And like anything, planning and preparation is always the key to success. Never try winging it. It might work for a small amount of time or for the odd occasion, but if you want consistent results and to see your levels progress consistently, you've got to do the prep work. Now, the question we always have to ourselves, and this has always entered my head, if I eat more, will I get fat? Because on the face of it, you think so. You're maintaining your weight, you're in a good place now, and then surely if you start eating more, it's just going to add inches to the stomach. Wrong. Think about what's going on inside us. Think about all the muscle tissue that needs that fuel, that needs that energy. Think about how much more intensity you could put into your sessions. Just because you're eating a little bit more food, it doesn't mean it's going to turn into any more fat. In fact, you have to eat 3,500 calories worth of food over your maintenance to even add a pound of fat. Think about that. Fat does not come on easily, especially if you are a consistent trainer, an active person. The way to think and the way to sort of push this thought aside is start thinking about how you feel during training. Trial and error. Don't go all in at the moment. If you're eating super low, don't just double your calories for the day, because you will feel that you're eating so much. You will probably gain a little bit more fat because your body's in a stage of being used to eating so low calories. Slowly and incrementally add calories. This week, add 200. Next week, add another 200 onto your daily target. The week after, and so on, until you reach that target where you actually should be at. And in line with those increases, you should feel an increase in your performance as well. So remember, food isn't earned. Performance is earned through the food that you eat, through the way that you fuel yourself. And then the way to think about your post-session food is not about, again, a reward, but it's about getting enough fuel in to recover and make sure that we come back tomorrow for our next session just as strong, just as fast, just as energized. You don't need a permanent cut. You need a reason to eat. And I'm speaking to you gymaholics. You guys that are at the moment just training for physique, not really a solid goal, no performance metrics against your name. And it's so easy to get stuck in that cycle of just surviving, maintaining, making sure that you're eating just enough to keep the clock ticking. But I promise you, when you add a real goal that is centered around performance, then food becomes a fuel, and that way of thinking is completely flipped. That's all it has taken me in regards to changing such a deceptive way of thinking, such a crippling way of thinking. Honestly, I was probably at the bottom of the barrel when it came to my relationship with food at one point. I was definitely making myself throw up if I ate too much. I would go on binges, fasts. All I'd think about all day, every day was food. It would even cause me to skip on family meals, social occasions, isolate myself from the rest of the world because I focused on food so much, and it was not a good place to be in. And I don't want you to do the same. So you guys who are just in the gym right now without a real goal, give yourself a new challenge. Work towards a real goal that would make you proud. Work to one that requires you to fuel yourself. And I promise, if you have these thoughts of food now, that you just need to survive, that you need to eat as little as possible, they will quickly be ousted by the need for performance, by the need for more fuel. You need a reason. You need a start line. So if you want to know what eating for performance looks like for you, your training, your body, your life, DM me the word fuel, and I'll personally break it down for you and your current situation. So I hope after today, you take away my experience, my darkest, deepest days relating to food, and start to think about it a little bit differently. Because I want you to thrive. I want you to be the athlete, the man, the monster you wish to be. And you can't do that without fueling yourself properly. This has been Thomas. See you on the competition floor. Peace. At one point, I was definitely making myself throw up if I ate too much. I would go on binges, fasts. All I'd think about all day, every day was food. It would even cause me to skip on family meals, social occasions, isolate myself from them. You don't need a permanent cut. You need a reason to eat. And I'm speaking to you gymaholics. You guys that are at the moment just training for physique, not really a solid goal, no performance metrics against your name.